Good morning. It's about time to begin our Bible class this morning. Our class seems to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'm going to need your help this morning because we're going to try something a little bit different, at least for the first few minutes of the class. And I'll explain that as we get closer to it. We are in a study of the book of Genesis. Last week, in the last couple of weeks really, we've spoken about the lives of Abraham, Sarah, and Lot, and Sodom and Gomorrah. And we're turning our attention this morning to Jacob and Esau. As you can see, we're a little bit behind on our schedule. This is not the 21st, it's the 28th, but we're gonna get caught up here at some point soon. So again, this will serve as our basis, this passage of Scripture, for at least the first part of our class this morning. But we now know that Abraham dies at the age of 175 years of age. We know that Ishmael dies at the age of 137, and he does get the 12 princes that he was promised. And then we know that Isaac marries Rebekah, now who is barren, and Isaac pleads with the Lord, which is a good thing. That's probably a lesson he learned from Abraham and Sarah. If you're having issues, turn to the Lord. So that message made it down to Isaac. So unlike Abraham and Sarah, kind of took matters into their own hands, Isaac turns to the Lord for help to open Rebekah's womb. So if you would turn with me to Genesis chapter 25. We're going to read 19 through 34, and then we're going to move on over to Genesis 26 and read those two verses, 34 and 35. Now, when we read this, what I want to do is I want to try to have a role play after we read this, okay? And there's going to be two parties involved in a role play. That's usually how it works, at least two. And there's going to be me. My name is Ithkar, and that was a hard name to come up with. That's not found in the Bible or any place I could find. So I'm Ithkar, and the class is going to be Jacob, okay? So I'm being interviewed by the Isaac family to help with the flocks and herds as a hired servant. And I would report directly to you, Jacob. I have extensive knowledge in animal husbandry with some experience in breeding animals to accentuate certain traits like spotted, speckled, and streaked characteristics. I'm not expert in any of that, but I'm somewhat hesitant to accept the position based on some things that I've heard about the family. And so you're Jacob. You're the one that's been appointed to kind of show me around, answer any questions that I have, and introduce me to your brother Esau if he's around. And you're a little over 40 years of age. Okay, so as we read this passage, be trying to gather facts and potential information that you could use to respond to the questions that I have. Okay? Genesis 25, starting in verse 19. This is the genealogy of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as his wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian and Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. Now Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If all is well, why am I like this?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples shall be separated from your body. One people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." So when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over. So they called his name Esau. Afterward his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. But Jacob was a mild man, dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, Please feed me with the same red stew, for I am weary." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die, so what is this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew and lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Okay, so let's turn to Genesis 26, and let's catch those two verses there, verses 34 and 35. When Esau was 40 years old, he took wives, Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. Okay. All right. So you're Jacob. I'm Ithkar. And I've showed up at your tent. And you're trying to fill me out. I'm trying to fill you out as to whether I want this shepherding job with your family. And I'll start it off here. I understand that y'all are looking for some help with the herds there, with the flocks. So who in your family is mainly over the flocks and the herds? Esau's over the flocks and the herds? Well, I had heard that Esau wasn't that involved with it. So it sounds like there's some confusion there about who I would report to as far as helping out with the herds. Do you have any? You mentioned Esau. I assume he's your brother. And so are there any other brothers or sisters that I might be dealing with if I took this job? Twins, okay. So you're a twin. Okay, well that's good. So y'all wouldn't be trying to, play this game where you act like Esau and Esau acts like you and try to confuse me while I'm out there or anything like that. Maybe. Okay, so y'all may be difficult to tell apart then, it sounds like. Okay, so he looks like you, but you aren't that close in your relationship. Okay. All right. So then I take it, y'all are obviously twins, so you're the same age, but one of you is older than the other. Who's the older one? Esau, your brother. So you're the younger one? Yeah. Okay. All right. So Esau, that name means hairy, right? Did I understand that right? Yeah, it means hairy. So, but you don't look hairy. That hairy, abnormally hairy anyway. Oh, you don't look anything like him. Okay, so if I saw you, then I shouldn't be looking for somebody just like you. So you aren't identical twins. You are fraternal twins, basically. Something along those lines. Okay, well that's helpful. I was kind of concerned about that. So has in my family, my mom, she comes in and she has people make sketches of us so they can hang them on the wall. Do y'all have anything like that in your family? Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Wow, that's hairy. Y'all don't look a thing alike. I mean, I'm glad I saw this because had I come up on him, it would have put me back on my feet a little bit. That's hairy. That's almost like kid goat hairy to a certain degree. Okay, so wow, that's good. So what? I mean, you're obviously over the flocks. I mean, that seemed like there was a little bit of confusion as to what your job was, but in the little write-up it said that you dwelt in tents, which kind of led me to believe that you were over the flocks. But what does your hairy brother do? He's a hunter? That's mainly what he does is he hunts? So why does he hunt? He likes to? He's good? Like really good at it? Okay. Say again? I can see that. Good thing somebody else isn't a hunter. There might be a problem. He can probably sneak up well on the animals. Are you interviewing for the job too? I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah, I mean, that's the question I've got is, why is he a hunter? Why is he hunting? I mean, he's your brother. You said you didn't see him a lot. I get that. Hunters have to be out sometimes for extended periods of time, but what is it about hunting that he enjoys? Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe he did need to hunt. So, I mean, wow, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, okay, so you're having to hire me because you got so many sheep and goats and cattle or whatever, and yet he's out having to hunt for food. I mean, does he like the taste of it, or is he trying to? I mean, I hadn't heard anything about wild animals. I mean, that could be legitimate, but I'm telling you, if you got wild animals out there, I'm probably not the guy for you because I'm just a sheep herder. I'm not gonna be taking care of any wild animal issues. But I hadn't heard of any. Okay, so does he like the? I know these are detailed questions, but I just kind of have to know because he's part of the family, and I would have to interact with him. But does he like the taste of venison or wild game? Yes, sir. Jacob.
Well, our father really likes venison a lot, so he's always tried to make Dad happy and bring back some good venison, some good game for him to eat. I think he likes it too. He enjoys the sense of fulfillment he gets from doing that and from providing for his family.
Mm-hmm. But does he need to do that? I mean, you've got all these sheep. I mean, I'm going to just say, we don't have near what y'all have. I mean, we're just small, and therefore I have more time to come do another job. But I guess what I'm thinking is, we used to go out and hunt deer and get venison, and we cook it up. But the way my mom cooked it, we got to where we couldn't tell the difference between the goat and the venison, and it took more time away from the flock. So we just sticking with the goats. Esau likes the food. Yeah, yeah. I guess I get that. I'm just trying to think. Okay, so there's this. Can you really tell a difference? And this is right here, and you could still be part of the family and not be off all the time. I don't know if anybody's run that by him just to see if that's the case, but I get it. Okay, I get it. So I understand he goes by this other name too, Edom. Is that right? Anybody, can you validate that? I may be off. Yeah, I thought so. That's what I'd heard. So, what should I call him? Should I call him Esau or Edom? Both. I mean, how did he come across? I mean, Esau, I get. I mean, I look at that picture and I'm like, yeah, I get that. But Edom, where'd that name come from? Yeah, I mean, Edom means red. I mean, that's kind of. Well, Esau, I think, means hairy, but Edom, I mean, okay, so it means red. So how did he get that name? Because why? Okay, I'm getting confused. So, all right. Red hair. Thinking red hair? He came out, I know that, I'd read some things about, he was born red, and I don't know if that's red hair or not, but is that, he got that name because of his red hair? Okay, well, I thought that I had seen something where it had to do something with a stew that he had eaten, and therefore his name was called a red stew, and therefore his name was called Edom. Okay, all right, could be. I guess I'm not a linguistic. See, I can't even say it. Linguistic expert. Okay, so and I don't want to pry too much into your personal life because that's really not my business. But I kind of need to know how the family operates and how it gets along, if it does, if there are any issues. So I'm not going into a buzzsaw. So I'd heard rumor that you're the younger one, and that you had somehow gotten his birthright, the birthright that really should go to the oldest one. Is that something I should be concerned about? Is there a reason for that? I mean, I don't know if he just voluntarily gave it to you. I don't know if I don't know how you did that. So is it true? It is. So he was hungry and you gave him food.
It appears with the family stuff. Esau, you could say maybe causes trouble within the family at this point.
Oh, okay. So y'all don't really get along well. Is it just you and so he really doesn't get along with your parents either?
There's two things here, the birthright and the blessing. And I think the blessing is God's blessing given to Abraham that his descendants would be blessed. But then the birthright, I'm assuming, is inheritance?
Well, I mean, Jacob, you got it. I mean, you have the birthright. You wanted it. So what's this thing? So I'm still confused. So you gave him like some stew and he gave you his birthright? Wow. He was so hungry he was going to die, and you gave him that. You wouldn't just give him the food? I mean, really? You take the right of birth of the first child? I'm kind of concerned about that, because if you would do that to your own brother, I mean, I'm a hired hand. What are you going to do to me? I'm just saying, I'm a little bit concerned about that. Yes, Jacob.
Yeah, my brother is always consistently just not taking any responsibility, not looking after the family. He's the firstborn. He should be the one here talking to you, but I've had to be that, play that role. So in my eyes, I took action. He always wanted to do what he wanted to do, spending all of his time hunting and hanging out in the woods. So I stepped in and figured, hey, I'm the more responsible one. I'm the one at home. I'm the one capable of managing these things. So let's make a deal. If you don't want to do it, let's make a deal. And he agreed to the deal, and now I have that birthright.
Okay, I can understand that perspective that, hey, if I'm going to do the job anyway, I might as well have the title to go with it. I mean, I kind of get that to a certain degree. Just kind of how you did it. I'm not totally unfamiliar with your family. My father used to water his sheep with some of Abraham's servants. I think that's your grandfather. And they would talk about this blessing that would be passed down. And, we kind of have blessings in our family too. But, I mean, this was kind of like blessings. Like, if you got this, you were going to be something. So is that something that Isaac has, your father? That blessing? And that's where I'd heard from it, where Abraham gave it to Isaac. Okay, and so Isaac then is going to have to give it to you or Esau, right? So how's that? Do you know? How do you know? How do you know who's going to get it? I mean, it's obviously easy with Isaac. Well, maybe not so easy, because I heard you had this half brother, but that was a full-blooded child from your parents. But what? How do you know who's going to get it between you and Esau? Your father will decide. So y'all don't know right now.
Yeah, actually, our father doesn't really know about the deal.
The deal of the birthright, or the deal with the blessing?
The deal of the blessing. Or the birthright, sorry.
Okay.
firstborn.
Okay, so does he know about, do y'all know who's going to get the blessing? Okay, okay. So Rebecca's your mom. So what does she know that nobody else knows? So then what you're telling me is you're going to get it. Wow. Now I can see that creating problems. I really can. I mean, I really can. You know, wow. You know, I'm not going to give you my final answer right now, but I'm really having to double think this shepherd job. You know, with the birthright thing and the deceit, it sounds like there's some trust issues in your family. I don't know that I would be treated right if you treat your own brother that way. Doesn't sound like really the families get along. I mean, if these wives are causing problems, that's just not going to be good. And look, I've got something down in Egypt. I'm just going to go check it out, see if that's a good fit for me, and I'll let you know. But I wish you the best on trying to fill that. I really do. It sounds like you got some hurdles to get over, and it sounds like you really need some help. So good luck with that. Okay, so we'll stick a fork in it there. So what do you think about this family? This family of Jacob and Esau and Isaac and Rebekah. If you have to defend them, you're having to give answers on behalf of the family to people outside of it. How do you feel about this family that you're in?
Dysfunctional, confusing.
Yeah, I agree. Dysfunctional and confusing for sure. What else? Deception, deceit, obviously. Preferences, one child over the other? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when it comes to the blessing, for sure. So, you know, one takeaway, and we talked about this from day one with Cain and Abel, there are no perfect families. And God used these imperfect people and these imperfect families to continue His plan. And when you go back and you look at the imperfect families and people that are part of His plan, I think that should give us comfort. You know, we don't have birthrights now or those kind of blessings, but I have an older brother, and it would take a lot for me to treat him the way that those brothers treated each other. And I understand some siblings don't get along. I get that. Yes, sir.
I would just like to point out here the repercussions of husband and wives keeping things from each other and taking sides for children, and how that can evolve into something later on that causes division in a family. You know, you see here Rebecca is clearly keeping things from Isaac and has a favorite here in this game, and so that contributes to the overall outcome, I think. And I think we have to be aware of that as parents ourselves. You know, I'm a parent, and thinking about I need to love and support both of my children equally, and that me and my wife should not hide or have any hidden agenda between each other.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good point. And there are a lot of lessons that can be learned, you know, between siblings from this account, between husband and wife, between parent and child. And that's a good thing about this. And one thing that as you delve into the study of this, you realize that maybe nobody else knew that Jacob had the birthright. Maybe that was just a Jacob and Esau thing. And the Lord appeared to Rebekah, right? But we don't know that information got communicated to Isaac. It was going to have to at some point in time, but I don't think we can go on the record and say, hey, this is how it happened. I think a lot of times when we learn these stories when we're younger, it's like everybody knows everything. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But if they didn't, it may shed some light on some of the communications or lack thereof in the account. Okay, so what do we know about Jacob and Esau? What do we know about Jacob? The milder one. He's the younger one by probably minutes. My dad's a twin. He's the older twin by minutes. And they did do that thing where they try to confuse people, as some twins do. He dwelt in tents. He was described, depending on what version you have, as a mild man. He was smooth-skinned. He dwelt in tents, which kind of leads you to believe that he was caring for flocks and herds. But that mild, plain, or quiet man, depending on what version you have, the Hebrew word for that was tam, and I'm probably not saying that right, but that's how I'm going to say it. And it means perfect, complete, undefiled, upright, and possibly even mature. So it's kind of a, I don't know if that was a interpreter's issue, but you almost, when you read that, he was a mild man or a plain man, you feel like that's almost a strike against him. But when you look at that word, that is the exact same word, and it's only used twice, the exact same word that God used to describe Job when he called him a perfect and upright man. And so if you take that and you put that in there in place of mild or plain, and that Jacob was a perfect and upright man, perfect from God's perspective, maybe not perfect from his relationships and everything that he did, but it kind of sheds a whole different light as to why God felt the way he did about Jacob. And then Esau. He was loved by Isaac. His name means hairy. He loved to hunt. He was cunning. He was a man's kind of man. He wearied himself doing what he loved to do, and maybe didn't fulfill his leadership role or potential leadership role in the family. He was a man of the field, and he treasured his time there in the wild. He was too busy pleasing himself and not fulfilling his role within the family. Exactly. So, and I think it's kind of interesting to note that Esau loses his birthright coming in from a hunt, and he loses his blessing going out to a hunt. So it's almost like this hunting consumed him. And although he was a cunning hunter, and I don't know if it's kind of like catching fish and going fishing, those are two different things. He's a cunning hunter, but obviously not always successful, because when he came back in, he was hungry. Okay, so not always successful. So the 3 B's kind of in this account are the birth, the birthright, and the blessing. And so we're going to take each of those just briefly and discuss those. So the birth was it an easy birth? Easy pregnancy? No, it was pretty rowdy. The children struggled within her to the point where Rebekah thought, I've got to talk to the Lord, which is, that's an admirable thing, to go to the Lord and ask for help, ask for clarification. And what does the Lord say? How does he respond to her? Yeah, 2 nations are in your womb. So there's this struggle. And I'm sure that was probably uncomfortable, but these weren't judgments passed on the 2 children in the womb. These were judgments really passed on the 2 nations that would result from the children in their womb. But the struggle began in her womb, and one would be stronger than the other. The older would serve the younger. So did that turn out to be true, that the older would serve the younger? In what way? What way is that true? Okay, so yeah, he definitely gave up his birthright, which is kind of a de-escalation in status for sure. But in 1 Chronicles chapter 18, in verse 12 through 13, we have Abishai there, and he's King David's nephew, and he was a loyal warrior, but he was ruthless. But in that passage, it says, Abishai killed 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He also put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became David's servants. So that's just one example of the younger serving, or the older serving the younger. So then we have this passage in Romans chapter 9, verses 10 through 13. So let's turn over there and read that real quick. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one man, even by our father Isaac, for the children not being yet born, nor having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him who calls. It was said to her, the older shall serve the younger, and it is written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. So what does that mean? What does that mean in the context of what we're talking about today, in the birth? Yeah, it's kind of like that quote about, God's plan will proceed forward divinely or not at all. It was a divine pick that he chose Jacob, not based on anything of what the children had done or would do at this point. It was a divine pick.
Isaac was to be born. From Isaac I will choose your descendants. So the firstborn Ishmael was not chosen. It was Isaac. And again, God chose the descendant of Abraham from Isaac, and he chose Jacob and not Esau. The firstborn, again, was rejected.
Yeah, absolutely. God's picking the people, and it's not just one or two times. The plan of God chose Isaac over Ishmael, chose Moses over his older brother Aaron to lead the Israelites, Joseph, the 11th of 12 brothers, to be second to Pharaoh, Gideon, the weakest clan, the youngest in his family, to deliver Israel, a shepherd boy named David to be king over his older brothers and even over King Saul's son Jonathan, Solomon over Adonijah, Joseph's younger son Ephraim over his older brother Manasseh, and Jacob over his older brother Esau. So this happens over and over again, not based on what people do, but based on God choosing these people. So, well, let's move on to the birthright. So what is the second B? What is the birthright? Okay, and who does that normally go to? Firstborn, yeah. So the birthright is important because it honored rights and privileges of the family's firstborn son. So after the father would pass, in the absence of the father, this firstborn son would assume the father's authority. He would step into the shoes of the father and take over the responsibilities of the family. So in addition to that, though, in addition to assuming those leadership responsibilities, which you can kind of see how maybe how Jacob's thinking about it, that look, if I'm going to have to do this anyway because Esau's away, then I'm gonna do it right. Okay, I'm going to take the job. The recipient of the birthright received a double portion of the inheritance. So that was another advantage of the birthright. Okay, so in this birthright exchange, and a lot of times we hear that the birthright was stolen. So is that an accurate statement, that the birthright was stolen from Esau? Yeah, he gave it. He gave it up willingly. And that's one of those things. I don't know if Jacob obtained it in the most admirable way. But he had no regard for it, right? No respect for what it was and what it meant. So Esau comes in from the field. He's weary. He says he's about to die. Okay, so I don't know if he's kind of a drama guy or not, but you can go 3 minutes for the most part without air. You can go 3 days without water. You can go 30 days without food. But by the end of those, things are looking pretty bad for you. And what's interesting is that 30 days for food, you're really no longer hungry. Okay, so hunger is not an issue at that point. So he wasn't near the 30-day limit. I don't know what it was, but how long did Jesus fast before he was tempted. 40 days. So there's that 40 number again. That's not necessarily a positive thing. So Jesus was truly near death when he was tempted in the desert. Okay, so Esau says, what is this birthright to me? Placed very little value on it, as we said. But he also sealed that with an oath. Jacob made him swear. So what if Esau would have just said, no, I'm not going to, just give me some food, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to play that game. And Joseph said, hey, well, then I'm not going to give you the food. What does that say? What does this event tell us about how Jacob and Esau interacted with one another? What does it say about their character? This whole event. And what could have happened, what should have happened, etc. Yes, sir?
Well, they're certainly not trusting in God to do what he said he's going to do, right? They're taking actions into their own hands. So there's a great lack of faith in this moment for God to come in and do what he says he's going to do and provide.
Yeah, he takes this imperfection in both of them and he uses it to further his plan.
To what extent these Esau and Jacob knew between the birthright and the blessing? Because again, it would appear later on that Esau's going to receive the blessing. So I wonder, from Esau's perspective, it's, hey, I'm going to get something from an inheritance perspective. I like doing my own thing, out hunting in the fields and doing all that. What's this birthright to me? I'm still going to be receiving the blessing down the road. If that's true, then yeah, probably a few applications there, but that would tell us quite a bit about maybe his mindset, or wanting to, I don't know, disconnect or be segregated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a valid statement. I mean, if he's like, okay, I'm going to get the real job down the road, so you can have this, double portion, thing, because when we start splitting things up, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot. I mean, that's a valid point for sure. So the fact that Esau came in hungry, what does that say about Esau? Hungry so much that, despite whatever value, high or low, he may have placed on that birthright, what does that say about Esau coming in hungry and willing to give up a birthright for just a bowl of food? He doesn't plan well. That's exactly what I had down. He doesn't plan very well. He doesn't have a plan B. He doesn't have a backup plan. What if I don't? What if I don't get the deer? Can I get a goat? Can we? They obviously can cook this stuff up pretty quick. It might take us a long time to do it, but evidently they can turn it around pretty quick. So he really didn't have a plan B. And also, he wanted it when? When did he want it? He wanted that food right then and now. So what other account in the Bible do we have of someone who wanted something right then and right now? Give it to me, and let me get out of here. The prodigal son, absolutely. He took what was his. He wanted what was his early so that he could go. And so, what turned the prodigal son around? He got to the point where he didn't have anything and he came to himself. And he said, I've got to go back and I'll work as a hired servant. And he goes back. The father welcomes him back. He doesn't get any additional inheritance. The father's not going to give him any more than what he gave him, but he's welcomed back and forgiven as a member of the family. We don't see any of that remorse to that level with Esau. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the blessing. He doesn't seem that disturbed at all about the birthright. All right. Yes, sir.
I don't really see much of a connection between the birthright. I don't see too much of a connection between the birthright and the blessing. Had Esau kept the birthright and still lost the blessing, it would have worked. But it has a whole lot to do with the preeminence in the family, and God said that the younger will, actually the older will serve the younger. So giving up the birthright had a whole lot to do with what God said to Rebekah.
Yeah, and what you said are some of the questions that I have and still have. what is this relation between the birthright and the blessing? Did Jacob really need to have this birthright? Well, if you're stepping in to the shoes of the father who has authority over the rest of the family, then can Jacob perform that job with Esau in it if he is supposed to be over Esau? I think you could make the argument that there's a way he could. The blessing may override the birthright, but I can also see where maybe the two are just the double emphasis of Jacob is the man. Jacob is the guy. So could it, and so we're running out of time here, so let's move quickly on to this blessing. We have a spiritual birthright, okay, which is probably pretty important to talk about. But when Esau did not get the blessing, and we're familiar with the trickery, so to speak, of Jacob getting that, it says that he found no place for repentance, though he sought it diligently with tears. What was Esau sorry about in relation to the blessing now? Not the birthright, but the blessing, losing the blessing. Yeah, when you lose, I think it's kind of what some of the comments that were made, when you lose the birthright, okay, but when you lose the blessing, you kind of lost it a lot. Yes, that was a little bit more close to the heart than what the birthright was. But it says he found no place for repentance. What is that? Though he sought it diligently with tears, what does that mean? He was sorry, and he wanted to admit that, hey, I was just too flippant. I didn't put enough value on these things. Yes, sir.
Maybe possibly this could mean that he found no place for repentance in his own heart, that he was sorry that he lost that, but not enough so that he would repent from the heart.
It could mean that for sure. It could also mean that there is not a way to repent once you've done this. There's no turning back. You can't take the blessing from the child that you've given it to and give it to someone else. Once you've given it, you've given it. And that became very clear in the account of this, is that when Esau came and he said, hey, can you just give it to one child? Can you give it to me? And Isaac says, no, I can't. I've given it away, and that's it. And Esau said, do you have a blessing for me? And so Isaac kind of gives it. It's not really even a blessing. It's kind of like a prophecy. This is what your life is going to look like. So it's not really much of a blessing. We know that that Esau does okay, but it's more of a blessing. I mean, a prophecy of what kind of your dim future is going to look like when he gives that blessing. And then after that, Esau is he has in his heart that he's going to kill his brother. Has in his heart he's going to kill his brother. And so what happens to Jacob? What's the plan to keep that from happening? Yeah, he sent away. Yeah, he sent away to go try to find a wife, and kind of let Esau cool off for a little bit. See if I can get anything in here that's... So on the third bullet point there, well, let's just go back up here. Why would Isaac bless Esau if he knew that Jacob was the one to get the blessing? He might not have known. I mean, we can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt, but why would Isaac bless Esau rather than Jacob? If he didn't know, that's a perfectly legitimate reason. And right. So why would Rebekah devise a scheme like this to trick Isaac? She loved Jacob more, right? And she knows. She's the one that had the direct contact, right? And so maybe she was thinking she was going to save Esau and Isaac. So what could have happened if Isaac had blessed Esau? If that truly would have gone through, what yeah, so it's hard to pull them apart, and that's where I really struggled with this and I asked several people, are they related or are they totally separate? And they just indicate that neither one of them acted appropriately. I don't know a better way to say that.
God used imperfect people. This could be, she could have recognized if Isaac didn't know, or maybe if he did, and was unwilling to fulfill this blessing, and she took in her own hands to accomplish that. So on a positive sense, that is a possibility.
Yeah. She's not going to get away with this for long, okay? No matter what. Just within hours at most, this is going to be figured out. So she has no long-term plan or game. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, like her sons, she didn't trust in God and to execute on the outcome that he had planned for. If God decided that Jacob was going to receive the blessing, everything could have unfolded in any number of ways, and God would have made sure that Jacob received the blessing.
Yeah, Jacob is going to get the blessing no matter what, right? No matter what. She might have thought, I'm going to save their lives, because God could be so aggressive as to say, okay, Isaac and Esau, you knew, you didn't do what I said, you guys are out of the picture, you're dead. Or he could have come out and said, hey, let me clarify this, don't do that, Isaac. Stayed the hand of Abraham. Don't do that, because that's not what I want Jacob, and do it. Because once he realized it, he actually blessed Jacob twice before he left. It was actually almost a better blessing when he left, the true Abrahamic blessing. Okay, we'll leave it right there. We'll pick up next week. David will pick up, and I appreciate your comments.